He had a gun stuck to his head the entire time. So after that, it was over. A few minutes later, we're sitting on the table, and he was telling us that he wanted to get out of the United States to go somewhere decent. And Nathan Black wanted to, I guess, create a little levity. He said Switzerland would be nice. And Clifford Draper stopped him cold. He said, let's not get too chummy in here. That's a bad thing because you don't shoot people you like. And he was wanting to create that distance.
He was not willing to discuss or talk with Sergeant Ahern back in the negotiations. The only thing he talked about was his minutes. He wasn't willing to make conversation. Radio station.
What I figured out about Clifford Draper was, even before I talked to him, I knew he was a music man. And that's the only reason I was to love him. I asked him, what can I do? He gave me some names, and he said, not the normal stuff you hear over here.
P13.
Aerosmith, U2, Police, Jeff Goldblum. So what I did, I canceled all commercials, and I just played those artists for him for hours. And I was getting calls from him and saying, what are you doing? This is crazy, man. And so I'm just trying something different.
He was very happy because they're not only playing his music, but they're not playing any commercials. This is costing them a lot of money to do this, and they were very willing to do that as long as it took tremendous cooperation from this radio station. And so that really was one of the positives about the whole process. So we did at least provide that for him and establish that connection between the radio station and him that provided some pretty good intelligence. So we did have some way of having regular communication with him through the radio station.
He said he had a bomb, but I didn't know if he did or not. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, please don't let that bomb go off. He apparently had enough amphetamines to keep him awake. That's what he was planning to do. He was going to stay awake for 72 hours until we got the radio fixed so he could go on the air. Now, when he said he wanted to read his manifesto, I went, okay, he is nuts. He is obviously deeply disturbed. Manifesto, he was angry at everybody. No women, no Catholics. He wanted all this back pay that he felt he was owed by the Army. Over.
We had one of the hostages that was having some problems with diabetes and was really medically having some issues that we were trying to hope that we could negotiate her release and stuff because she really couldn't be treated in there.
She is digressing physically. I said, Mr. Draper, why don't we let the women go? Just keep the men. No, he's not going to let anybody go. She had digressed to the point where she could no longer sit in the chair. She was passing out and so forth. So Virginia Savage and Earl Dillon helped her on the table. Of course, that was with the Draper's consent. That's when they said to him, Mr. Draper, let her go. She's just going to lay here and die. He said, maybe I'll let her go. Maybe I'll trade her for a cop. I've always wanted to kill a cop. Then he changed his mind and he said, I've got my own problem. She can lay there and die for all I care.
The officer, knowing that there's an individual having a medical emergency, would put a little bit more pressure on him to try and find a resolution to the situation.
When he shortly passed out, Welty let off the throttle for turns.
We knew that Lloyd would be armed, and how would he be able to conceal that throughout this ordeal? Not only from the person's statement, Mr. Draper, but also from the other hostages. His work had been experienced that we've seen this happen in researches that have also where hostages start relating to the hostage taker. And if one of those hostages should inadvertently see Lloyd Prescott's weapon, what would they do with that information? If they shared that with the hostage taker, especially Lieutenant Prescott's would be in danger.
She would come in and out of consciousness. You could watch her breathing, shallow breathing. She would back over. I reached, pat her on the shoulder. My shirt, chest,
that switch is essentially a switch that if the person is holding onto it and they let go of it, for whatever reason, it automatically detonates the device.
He found the wires were getting loose, disengaging from the dead man switch, which would jeopardize his ability to ignite the bomb, or maybe worse, ignite the bomb accidentally.
He has Michael Weir carrying on some duct tape. It's terrible. When he does that, he puts the handgun on the table. The handgun is attached to his wrist with what we call a suicide strap, so that wherever he moves his hand, it's going to drag the gun. It's never going to be out of his reach. So he is doing that. I thought, this is a great time to try and take him. I thought, you read that wrong, and that dead man switch goes off. You just killed some innocent people.
We had one of the hostages that was having some problems with diabetes.
She is digressing physically. That's when we said to him, Mr. Raymond, let her go. She's just going to lay there and die. And he said, maybe I'll let her go. Maybe I'll trade her for a coffee. I've always wanted to kill coffee.
We knew that Lloyd would be armed, and how would he be able to conceal that throughout this ordeal?
We were listening to what was going on. So we knew if the time had come, we had to do immediate action.
He apparently had enough amphetamines to keep him awake, and that's what he was planning to do. He was going to stay awake for 72 hours until we got the radio fixed so he could go on the air. Now, when he said he wanted to read his manifesto, I'm like, okay, he is nuts. He is obviously deeply disturbed.
He was not willing to discuss or talk with Sergeant Ahern back in the negotiation center. But he was with the radio station, so we did have some way of having regular communication with him through the radio station.
He said he had a bomb, but I didn't know if he did or not. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, please, please don't let that bomb go off.
He found that the wires were getting loose and disengaging from the dead man switch, which would jeopardize his ability to ignite the bomb.
I thought, this is a great time to try and take him. I thought, you read that wrong, and that dead man switch goes off. You just killed some innocent people.
Certification of this week. We was eventually found out that this is what it was. Everything was just taken down because he had the measure of everything. absolutely had to guard Hugh made that choice. For us, it was like a sigh of relief. Hospital for staying, so we considered no negotiations, gentlemen's return. It's pretty would the outcome be different after what happened?
It's too bad that Clifford didn't survive this too. We did try to make that happen. We did try to talk him into successfully getting himself out of this predicament without him getting hurt. But he wasn't willing to cooperate with us, and ultimately led to his death. You don't have too many of these types of situations in your career, and you hope like hell that you can do the right thing when you are faced with those circumstances, like Lloyd did.
We all want to think that if things get bad, that we'll step up to the plate. I think the cops caught the only guy in town that would do that. I think there were a lot of people that would have done something to help those people, and if they had to lay their life on the line, they would have done it.
I think people assume that you get over it. If you're not over it, it changes you. Doesn't necessarily change you for the bad, doesn't necessarily change you for the good. It changes you. Monday, I go to work. The morning show guys, they were really great. They teased me about it on the air, and they were wonderful. So I do my show, and then I get off the air, and I get a call. And it's from a police officer, and he says, "You don't know me, but I've been listening to you for years. And you think you're okay, but you're not. I can tell. I've sent out an appointment for you to talk to the therapist. The city will pay for it." And he was absolutely right. I was not okay. So I went and talked to the therapist several times. City picked up the bill. It was wonderful. But that act of kindness I will never forget.
It's something I've learned to live with. It's been over 24 years. I've had time to heal. Didn't want to shoot him. Wish I hadn't had to shoot him. Glad I was able to stop him from hurting somebody. It's uncomfortable. I have people tell you here, I was a hero. I went to work and did my job. I did what I was trained to do. I did what I was paid to do. There's so many people out there that risk their lives to make what sets me apart from them. I think they're all heroes.
I was standing in the doorway. I said, "Can I talk to you about this vehicle?" And he took a step to the left, and he said, "I'll talk to you, all right." And at that time, I yelled, "Gun!" I heard bang, and as I was running, I turned to see behind me, and I bang, and then I got hit. Don't hit me in the face. And then the other two started shooting at him. And the way he described it was like a Wild West shootout.
I think they just grabbed everything and fled. And he was looking for places to hide, so he did kick the door down. He came in and was telling everybody to get up. We didn't have time to say anything. We were told to go sit down and shoot the gun. Actually, I was more scared of her than I was of him. He cut the telephone cord so he couldn't phone anybody. We were all tied up. Then he took Dave's and left. Dave went down back roads to come to a doctor.
We knew Archer had taken hostages and was holed up at the doctor's home. Looked in the phone book, there's a doctor. So I made the call. The man answered and said hello. I said, "Hi, I understand there's been some trouble there." And he said, "I'm the guy who's causing the trouble."
January 23rd, 1978, the town of Verdon, Manitoba, Canada, and surrounding community of Oak Lake have settled in on a cold winter's night, unaware of what will soon transpire.
I live in Oak Lake, Manitoba. My husband worked in the oil field there when we met and we got married. And then when I were here, I cooked for 30 years in the hotel I worked.
I joined the RCMP on the 1st of February 1967. 76 I went to Verdun.
The town of Verdun is located in the southwest corner of the Canadian province of Manitoba and has over 3,000 residents.
Brushy. It's like more prairie type than we up north. The bushes and good land, good farmland, and not big trees and just agricultural. That's basically what it is. I'm a retired journalist. I used to work for the Winnipeg Tribune as a reporter, police reporter. Breaking stories, fires, plane crashes, accidents, anything that of the moment. It was very exciting, actually. For a young reporter from the North End, that was my background. Crime and accidents are always sort of adrenaline pumping events. It was about mid-evening. I was patrolling this country roads, and I stopped in to see a friend of mine. He was in the rural area, and it would be before midnight sometime. I can't remember right off the bat. And I got a call on the radio from a fellow worker, Dennis Onifray.
Senior Constable Russell Hornseth receives a call about a license plate check. A missing rental vehicle has been found parked at a local motel. Constable Hornseth decides to travel back to town and help with what he thinks will be a routine call.
It's a very common practice in law enforcement for officers to conduct license plate checks. You get a wealth of information when you do these, from the registered owner information to the vehicle make. Whenever a license plate is run and something suspicious comes back on that plate, the police are going to enter into some sort of investigation to investigate that vehicle and the occupants or the driver of that vehicle.
I said, okay, you wait and I'll be there. So I told my friend, I'm going to go back. So I jumped in the car and went to Verdun. And while we were there, John Candy came in out of the police car. And so I said, okay, we'll just go and we'll find out who they are. So we walked up to the door in front of a big van. And we went in front of that, and there was a door to the room. Dennis was standing on my right, and John and Candy were on the left against the wall. And I knocked on the door, and the door opened, and this guy was standing in the doorway, and he had his whole right shoulder was against the door jamb. He was scruffy looking, dirty looking. I said, I would like to talk to you about this vehicle. And he took a step to the left, but his arms come out, and there was a shotgun in his hands. And he said, I'll talk to you, all right. And at that time I yelled, gun. The gun was in holster. I turned, was head towards the front of the police car, west side of the parking lot. And I heard bang. And as I was running, I turned with the seat behind me, and then bang, and then I got hit. Something hit me in the face, just bang.
The gunman, Bruce Archer, is heavily armed and willing to shoot his way to freedom.
Well, I knew then it was the gun and the shotgun. I knew that, and it was the different spots. And I made it to the car, and I went around the front of the car, and another shot was fired. And I got on the west side of the car in the front door. Then I could feel pellets. You could tell what they were, and they were shooting under the car, trying to get to my feet. I could tell that. You could hear the way the pellets were going. So I went to the passenger's side door, opened the door, and leaned into the front to reach the radio. And there was a bang, a couple of bangs I knew weren't shotgun. I could tell that they were rifle shots. And I heard the gun hit the car. So I figured he's trying to shoot me through the door or the fender because he knows I'm in the front of the car. So I just managed to get the radio and I called Brandon and told him 10:33 that this is what happened. And then I backed out and I got behind the back wheel and I exchanged shots at that time because I had the gun until I got behind the car.
Blood from Constable Hornseth's gunshot wound impedes his vision. Still, he fires back, trying to stop the shooter.
And then the other two started shooting at him. He returned fire, and the way he described it was like a Wild West shootout. And then I couldn't see. And it was like my face had blood all over me, and I had a hard time seeing. And the gun was all caked in blood. And then he would go in, back in, and then he'd pick the gun up and shoot,
So he backed in. After he shot back, I ran to the corner of the building. And there's an L shape, and Candy was in the corner. She was trapped. But I said to her, I said, stay down, be quiet, and don't do anything because he doesn't know you're there.
The police survive heavy fire as they continue waiting for backup. They make a plan, but will it be enough to contain the situation?
And I called John, and he came up over to my side, way up to me. And I said, John, Candy's in the corner there. Dennis is on the other side of the van. If you sit right where I am. I got to the radio and I said, help's coming. I can't even see hardly, so I'm getting out of here before I fall down the collapse and cause you a problem. I moved away to go towards the hospital, and that's the way I went. John was there, and it was dead quiet then. So I figured, well, it's covered. John's here, Candy's there, and she knows because I know what happened. And he found out she was there. He just sticks her around the corners. She's locked in that corner, ready to get out. Joined the RCMP in 1st of February 1967. 76 I went to Verdun, and I got a call on the radio from a fellow worker, Dennis Onifray.
A call about an overdone rental vehicle at a local hotel sends Senior Constable Hornaceth over to investigate.
And so I said, okay, well, we'll just go and find out who they are. So we walked up to the door. I knocked on the door, and that door opened. Those guys were standing in the doorway, and he had his whole right shoulder against the door jamb.
So he opened the door and shot the first police officer. And then the other two started shooting at him. He returned fire, and the way he described it was like a Wild West shootout.
A break in the gunfire leads Archer and his accomplice, Dorothy Mallet, to attempt an escape.
The wife was shot. She was shot in the abdomen.
Though his wife Dorothy is injured, the duo managed to steal a police car.
And one police officer was killed, and actually they were expecting a baby.
I did not find out about Dennis until a day later. I didn't know he was dead until I shot. So after I was in the hospital, it had to have been the first blast because I heard a blast, and then I turned and there was another blast where I got hit. And I found out after that he was there, so he got the first blast. He didn't even have time to think.
Being shot at will elicit several different types of responses from even the best trained officers. In a situation like this, really it comes down to the human factor and their training. How does that officer react to those shots being fired? Is it a fight or flight type situation where they're going to fight immediately or retreat, reevaluate, and then act on that situation?
One lady police officer, she was shot in the stomach. And they didn't know whether she was going to make it for a while, but she did make it, but she never ever did go back in. And then the third police officer got his eyes shot out. The fourth police officer, nothing happened to him.
The gunman shoots his way out of the hotel, now on the run. The reason behind his violent reaction to the police at his door starts revealing itself.
There had been a murder in Calgary. A businessman was found bound and killed, and Archer and his wife were the number one suspects. Dorothy Mallet was the wife. It was not Bonnie and Clyde. She was not egging him on. She was, whatever he wanted to do, she was with him. And that was the relationship. That was why he loved her.
Meanwhile, the injured constables get treatment for their gunshot wounds.
I go down there and they do what they do in the hospital. And so they said, well, we're going to Brandon. And then before we left, Candy was brought in. And she was shot up very badly. Apparently he stuck his head out and she said something to the effect of stop or I'll shoot you, something to that effect. I'm not positive what was said. But something along those lines was said by her. And I guess then he knew she was there. He shot her.
Police officers, I think they had 2 police cars there, and I think they just grabbed everything and fled.
So this suspect is on the run. this is really going to cause him to act unpredictably to ensure he doesn't get captured by the police.
And he was looking for places to hide, so he seen our farm on the number 1 highway and he stopped. He runs the car into a snowbank behind the house because trees around our place and he didn't want anybody to see it. And actually it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and we had our door locked and he did kick the door down and he came in just telling everybody to get up.
Local law enforcement investigates a call on an overdue rental car in the town of Verdun, Canada.
Door opened, there was a guy was standing in the doorway, and he had his whole right shoulder was against the door jamb. He was scruffy looking. I said, I'd like to talk to you about this vehicle. And he took a step to the left, and he said, I'll talk to you, all right. And at that time, I yelled, gun. And I heard bang. And as I was running, I turned to see behind me, and I bang, and then I got hit. Stuck hit me in the face, just bang.
The gunman and his wife steal a police car and are on the run. But the body count continues as he's now killed a police officer and shot 2 others.
And he was looking for places to hide, so he seen our farm on the number 1 highway and he stopped. And actually it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and we had our door locked and he did kick the door down and he came in and was telling everybody to get up. They were both fairly short and heavier built. And we did have a dog too, and the dog was our team, but it was just a little dog. We were trying to make him be quiet, and actually the man said he didn't bark, so maybe that was some kind of relief from what he'd done. It was normal. We didn't even have time to say anything. It just was all in a hurry, and we were told to go sit down. They said we shot a police officer. I've never been in a situation like that, so to me it seemed like it was a lie that he said he shot a police officer. We were all very quiet, and he did say my wife was shot, and he didn't tell us why or anything, and she sat across the room with a gun. She was shot in the stomach. He wanted more guns, he wanted money, and we didn't actually have guns or money in the house, but then he let it pass because they already had guns. I think they stole some of the police officers' guns when we left.
The farmer in this situation has to think quickly. He's thinking about protecting his family, protecting his wife.
They don't say too much, they just cut these lamp cords. He seemed like he was sorry for what he was doing. When he tied the 2 girls up, he said sorry, we don't know if he was doing it too tight, things like that.
Archer sends the kids to their rooms. He now begins the negotiations with Dave and Irene, launching their plan.
And he cut the telephone cord so he couldn't phone anybody.
Meanwhile, the injured police officers are getting much-needed medical attention for their gunshot wounds.
Well, her and I were in the ambulance who went to Brandon, and then I went after him. I never did know at that time how bad she was getting. She went in, but I didn't move until later. That's when they said they had to take my eye out. Smoke it all up. But the pellets here, they're in my head here. I thought it was right on the bone here, with the millimeter lower that line. The shell is still stuck right on the bone. And I got other shell fragments in my head.
Very curious what the running the split spores. I'm gonna sure find out. Yeah, you can find out yourself. Search Echo the group. Find out if you are unsafe for normal. Only. Yeah, you have to be on the Airbnb server to see it, unfortunately. So I would love to help, but I can't. Another thing I know is Echo at 57.4%, so I think while we were away, they got an investment. Oh, this is the second time this has happened to me, by the way. Step away, there's a new vest, so...
He didn't know very much. Then I started phoning people around, and of course they were sleeping. They were just getting up, and they didn't know very much. So I abandoned that.
Desperate, With his wife badly wounded, the gunman needs to get her medical assistance immediately. He demands Irene Penny drive him to the nearest hospital. But Irene's husband, Dave, lies, saying Irene can't drive. They take Dave hostage instead.
When they came, they did drive the car in the snowbank. They go up to our vehicle and they're going to leave. He wouldn't let Dave drive. Archer was driving and he drove into a snowbank. So they had to come back into the house. Then they brought her back in. Actually, I was more scared of her than I was of him because she seemed to be, maybe it was because she was shot, she was desperate or something.
Once out of the snowdrift, the gunman and Dave go to steal another vehicle from a neighbor.
And they left her at our house to guard us while they went to get another car. Dave took them across to a lake to a farmhouse there because the guy that was taking Dave hostage wanted a different car. He didn't like to be seen in the same car. So they went and knocked on the door and they went in and tied them up and took one of their cars. And then they come back to our place and they picked up Miss Mallett and then left.
Now safe, Irene and her daughters take action.
We're all tied up. Just our hands, it was just cords off lights. When you tie somebody up with a light cord, you can pull your hands apart and then we all got loose. And then I walked to the neighbors and then the police came up to our house. I was scared for Dave, but I was relieved because they were gone and my two girls are safe and I was safe. I knew Dave. He would control the situation, keep everything calm. They wanted Dave to take him to a hospital, but Dave warned him to keep off number 1 because that would be the place that they would find him if they did. So Dave went down back roads to come to the lake to a doctor, and Dave knew there was a doctor here in the lake.
The gunman hopes the doctor can give his wife the medical attention she needs, but she's bleeding heavily from the bullet wound she received in the shootout.
By that time, we knew Archer, the shooter, had taken hostages and was holed up at the doctor's home. Looked in the phone book, there's a doctor listed in the phone, the doctor so-and-so. So I went to the editors, I said, okay, I've called everybody I can. Do you want me to call the doctor's home? Because I don't want to sort of upset the police or the shooter. You know, you just hear a call. They say, yes, go ahead. So I phoned, and the phone rang a couple of times. And I thought at this time, this was 2.5 hours after the shooting, that the RCMP would have diverted all the phone calls from the house so that they could control communications. So I was thinking, oh yeah, I'll be talking to an RCMP officer. So I made the call. The man answered. The man with a deep voice answered and said hello. He said, hi, I'm George Jacob from the Winnipeg Tribune. I understand there's been some trouble there. And he said, I'm the guy who's causing the trouble.
On the run for murder, Bruce Archer and Dorothy Mallett once again escape the police. They break into a farmhouse, taking local man Dave Penny hostage.
We didn't even have time to say anything. We were told to go sit down. They said we shot a police officer and he cut the telephone cord so we couldn't phone anybody. They wanted Dave to take him to a hospital. We're all tied up. Just our hands, it was just cords off lights. When you tie somebody up with a light cord, you can pull your hands apart and then we all got loose. And then I walked to the neighbors.
George Jacob stayed at the doctor's house.
We knew Archer had taken hostages there. And the doctor looked in the phone book, there's a doctor. So I made the call. The man answered, said hello. Said, hi, I understand there's been some trouble there. And he said, I'm the guy who's causing the trouble. That threw me for a loop because I was not prepared to talk to them. So I started, who, what, where, when, and why. Just like what happened, why did you do this? And I was very concerned about not saying anything that would upset him. And I was in the back of my mind, so every question I asked, I filtered first. Am I asking it in a fashion that is not going to upset him? So we talked, and he was actually more calm than I was. He was dead calm and answering all my questions. He asked me, how's the crop I shot? And I knew the RCMP officer was dead, but I didn't want to tell him. So I said, he's in Winnipeg, undergoing surgery, and he's getting the best treatment possible. And that seemed to satisfy him. Okay. And so we went on. He wanted to start a new life somewhere other than Canada. He wanted a plane to fly him to another country. He